So for our warm-up, in 1 or 2 sentences, write your response to the following question in the chat. Remember to use correct spelling, grammar, punctuation, and capitalization. How does the author feel about Jan Dempscher? How does the author feel about Jan Dempscher? And then you can use the following sentence starter. The author thinks Jan is. What character trait do you think the author thinks Jan is? Based on what we read yesterday. A stunning tale of escape traps its hero in replay in your SpringBoard book. And remember to use your legal first and last name, be on mute, and have your video turned on for attendance and engagement purposes. All right. So today's daily agenda is the attendance and warm-up, and we're going to continue with SpringBoard page 179, the article. Our objective today is to compare and contrast a fictional account of a disastrous event with a nonfiction account, with a focus on the perspectives of the narrator and the author, and to analyze the author's point of view and purpose in a nonfiction text. You'll need your SpringBoard book and possibly your Tangerine book, but just have it nearby just in case. So when we look at the two texts, Tangerine and the article that we read yesterday, A Stunning Tale of Escape Traps Its Hero in Replay, you'll notice that they're told in different points of view. Tangerine is told in first person point of view. And the benefit of this is that the reader knows what the narrator is thinking and feeling throughout the novel. The reader can begin to understand Paul's perspective and develop a deep sense of sympathy for him. And the limits to our first person perspective in Tangerine is that the reader doesn't know what any of the other characters are thinking and cannot experience an event unless Paul's there or Paul describes it. Now, in the article, this is really third person, focusing on Jan. The benefits is because the author presents the facts objectively, the reader can form opinions and draw conclusions on our own. And as a limit, the reader feels more distance from the events and people described. If they told us more about all of the people or the firefighters or the other heroes, we would really get a better feel of the whole event in entirety. So today I want to go back to that article. Obviously, the person who writes this news article, Harry Brunius, believes Jan is a hero. And so yesterday, when we looked at the article, we focused on, do we understand what's going on? And do we understand the words? We circled any unknown words. And then we underlined important phrases and sentences in the article, especially any that show details for the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, and the how. And then today I want to go over those sentences that you may have underlined, and a lot of us are going to have different ones, summarize the text, and identify the main or central idea before we compare it with the book Tangerine. So in the article, A Stunning Tale of Escape Traps Its Hero in Replay, I'm just going to play it again to show you what we read yesterday and to focus on what were the important events that we underlined. If you didn't get a chance to underline 6 things yesterday, do that as we're reading today.
A Stunning Tale of Escape Traps Its Hero in Replay by Harry Brunius from the Christian Science Monitor. Jersey City, New Jersey. Sunlight seeps through the translucent curtains on his living room window, making the lacquered matryoshka dolls on the wall case gleam. Sitting on the sofa, Jan Dempscher leafs through a thick binder of news clippings about his heroic September 11th escape, still in a daze at the story they tell. He stays home often now, speaking more Ukrainian than English, a language still difficult for him. When he does venture out, he's sometimes overcome with a sense of fear, his head dizzy and heavy, like a big ball of lead. It's been almost a year, but Mr. Dempscher has still not returned to his job as one of the workers who wash the endless sheets of glass stacked to the sky in Manhattan. It's become a safe new routine, sitting here amid pillows adorned with his wife's cross-stitchings, telling how he survived. His ordeal was compelling. He was trapped in an elevator with 5 others after the first plane struck Tower 1, and barely escaped by clawing through the walls with only his squeegee. And media from around the world have since flocked to him, reporting his story of survival and the tiny tool that saved him. Before, he'd wake up at 4:45 a.m., 5 days a week, jump on the train to the city, and do his job. Like the thousands of lunch pail workers who pass each day through the tunnels to the island, Dempscher wasn't part of the Manhattan cliches. The vaunting ambition, the ceaseless pace, the glare of art and commerce. Instead, like the steel frames within a skyscraper's facade, he was one of the people behind the city's glamour, those who built, maintained, and ultimately removed, piece by piece, the twisted wreckage of the World Trade Center. Window cleaners have been much like the glass they clean, transparent, says Richard Fabry, publisher of an industry magazine. But John Dempscher, pronounced John Dempscher, was never a guy to seek attention. Small and demure, he spoke little, and except for occasional mirth in his pale blue eyes, he revealed few emotions. Content with a predictable routine, he rarely missed a day at work, was honest and industrious, paid his mortgage, and spent time with his wife and kids. His Jersey City house, which had a view of the Twin Towers, was just minutes from the PATH train that took him straight to the sprawling trade center, a place he liked to call his second home. That Tuesday, he punched in at 6 a.m. and spent most of the morning cleaning glass doors and partitions on floors 90 to 95 in the North Tower, the impact zone. He worked through his 8 a.m. break so he could finish those top floors early. Otherwise, he'd be there until 9. He finished at 8:20 and took the elevator down to the 43rd floor cafeteria. At about 8:45, finishing his coffee in Danish, he left the cafeteria and dashed to make an express elevator, about to run up to the 77th floor. At 8:48, as he and 5 others zipped up the shaft, they felt a jolt and then the building sway. The elevator dropped before the emergency brakes ground it to a halt. Later, when smoke started seeping into the car, they knew they had to try to get out. Dempscher quietly took charge. After they pried open the elevator doors, he saw the surface was drywall. "Does anyone have a knife?" he asked. "No, nothing." So Dempscher started chopping at the wall with the 18-inch blade of the squeegee. When the blade broke and fell down the shaft, he used the handle. It took over an hour, but the 6 men took turns scraping and poking, and finally burst through to a men's bathroom on the 50th floor. Startled firefighters guided them in different directions. Dempscher went down the stairs. The other tower collapsed at 9:59, when he was at the 11th floor. Soon engulfed in darkness, dust, and confusion, he put his hand on the shoulder of the stranger ahead, continuing down. Seeing him in a maintenance uniform, firefighters screamed to him, "How do we get out?" Dempscher had them pan the smoke and dust-filled hallways on the 3rd floor with their flashlights, and he spotted an exit to another stairwell. He instinctively held it open as others went through first, until a fireman grabbed him by the arm and let him out. Outside, emergency workers gave him oxygen and water to rinse his eyes. He made his way to the West Side Highway, just a few blocks away, and was finally able to see the sky. "When I look up and see the tower burning, I turned like ice," Dempscher recalls. "Everything was freezing in me. Then, the antennas of Tower 1 started to teeter. I started to run. I kept looking back, saw the building banging down like a pancake. As he ran, his eyes were burning, his head was pounding, the dust was choking him, and then his body felt numb. A few more blocks away, he noticed how beautiful the day was, and sheepishly admits he began to touch himself to see if he was really alive, like a scene from a silly cartoon. Dempscher couldn't have imagined he'd tell this story to so many, or that his squeegee handle and uniform would become a part of the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. He'll relive a lot of it again this week, when he attends ceremonies in New York and Washington, D.C. But by the end of the year, he hopes to be able to get back to work. "It is a different kind of life, but I prefer the way it was when people were alive," Dempscher says.
So you can see where I'm taking notes. I did the end as kind of a why sentence for paragraph 14. And then in paragraph 10, I use this as a how. How did he save all of the people and get out of the Tower 1? In paragraph 8, I use this as kind of a when sentence. In paragraph 6, I use this one as a who sentence. And then in paragraph 3, I use this as kind of a what and a where sentence. And in paragraph 1, like I showed you yesterday, I use this as a what happened and when sentence. So you might have underlined or highlighted different ones than I did, but the point is that you can use all of these important sentences to create a summary. So when you look back at what you underlined, the basic summary is that on 9/11, Jan Dempscher used his squeegee and quick thinking to save many people from death when planes crashed into the Twin Towers. Right? This is what he did. He is a hero. And if I go back and specifically look at paragraph 3, I can really tell the main or central idea of the text. That Jan Dempscher acted heroically during these horrible circumstances. He was an ordinary guy and really rose to the challenge of being extraordinary and being a hero. And then the sentence that I could use to back that up would be in paragraph 3, his ordeal was compelling. He was trapped in an elevator with 5 others after the first plane struck Tower 1 and barely escaped by clawing through the walls with only his squeegee. And media from around the world have since flocked to him, reporting his story of survival and the tiny tool that saved him. And yes, that was an actual picture of Jan in the previous slide. So now what? Now I want you to flip over in your SpringBoard book to page 182. And question 5 says, review the description of the sinkhole disaster and rescue in Paul's entry for Monday, September 11th. Identify the 5 W's and an H in the description of the event. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Do the same thing that we just did, except instead of underlining in your library book, summarize the who, what, when, where, why, and how on page 182 in your SpringBoard book. So who is Monday, September 11th about in Tangerine? Paul and his classmates. Write that down. What happened on September 11th in the Tangerine book? A sinkhole disaster. Write that down. When did it happen? Monday, September 11th. And technically Monday, September 11th later. Where did this happen? At Lake Windsor Downs Middle School. Why did this happen? Does anyone remember why the sinkhole happened? It did tell you in that chapter. Go ahead and write in the chat if you remember. And how did this happen? How did Paul end up saving the kids? Or how did he end up saving the students? Write that down as well. So I want you to think about September 11th in the article with Jan Dempscher and September 11th with Paul in Tangerine. And let's compare and contrast them. one of the things that I want to show you is this quote from Paul. And he said towards the end of that September 11th chapter, I faced danger today, maybe even death. When disaster struck, we all had to do something. In a way, we all had to become someone. I'm not saying I was a hero. All I did was slide around in the mud and try to pull people up. But I didn't panic and run either. But today I wasn't a coward, and that counts for something. Think about that. I feel like this could have been in the article about Jan as well, right? You have these ordinary people doing these extraordinary events, becoming a hero during some kind of traumatic event, helping others. And I put that ellipses just so you know in the part. He talked about Eric and Arthur there, but I don't want to include that. You can see that this sentence is similar to, I think, how Jan kind of felt about himself and his actions. Like, of course I did this. Of course I helped. And so on page 182 in your SpringBoard book, I want you to make a Venn diagram like you see on this slide. Think about that description of the sinkhole disaster and rescue in Paul's entry for Monday, September 11th. And we're going to compare and contrast Tangerine, remember that's a fake fictional book, with the real historical event in A Stunning Tale of Escape Traps Its Hero in Replay, the article we read in SpringBoard. So go ahead and draw that Venn diagram. And what I did is I just drew mine under number 7. And on one side, and we aren't doing number 7, on one side, put the article, and you can literally write article, or you could write the actual name of the article, A Stunning Tale of Escape Traps Its Hero in Replay. And then on the other side, write the book, and you can literally write book, or you can write Tangerine. And I want you to think about how they compare and contrast. And let's go ahead and fill out the middle first. What do they both have in common? What do they both have in common? And then we'll fill out the sides that the difference is. And I've already put the narrator there for you too. Okay, what do they both have in common?